Hello Internet, Taliesin here, and welcome to another episode of the Weekly Reset with our temporary new look. We had to take down the usual set and turn it into a guest room so that my mum can come and visit when our baby is born, it being due on the 23rd of February. Now why does that date sound familiar? Oh yes, because that's also the date that the new major World of Warcraft patch 9.2 Eternity's End is launching in the EU. The US release, as usual, being the day before, 2/22/22/22/22 that date. And you might well be thinking, wow Taliesin, you must be gutted that the patch launches on the day your baby is due. I guess you won't be playing it at all, right? And that's a fair assumption, you know. But one that forgets that just 2 years ago, Evitel's waters broke in the middle of Vexiona progress, and when I asked if we should go to the hospital, she said no and insisted on finishing the raid night. We killed Vexiona and Anirim was born and all was well. And with the release date looming and our first and maybe only major patch of 2022 ready to be birthed straight out of Blizzard, I think it's time to put our calm, rational heads on for a second and ask, what are all the things that aren't even ready yet though? Because holy shit, Blizz, you're not going to release the patch like this, are you though? Seriously though, really? For which I would like to introduce you to, especially for this episode, our it's new, okay? Wheel of shit show, wheel of stuff that needs to be sorted before the 2/22/22/22 and release of Eternity's End. Let's give it a spin. The new expansion 10.0. Oh, this is awkward. Honestly, this one should probably have been last, and in hindsight, I totally should have used some YouTube technical magic just to cheat and make it last, but that's not how we do stuff on this show, which is real and gritty and brutal. So yeah, it's fair to say, for many people, by far the most exciting thing about getting a release date for 9.2 is that there is now nothing to stand in the way of a new expansion 10.0 announcement. Let's be real, there are many players who have simply given up on Shadowlands as an expansion, and even though I very much enjoy the game, I wouldn't blame anyone for that. Shadowlands is going to last at least as long as Legion or BFA, but with a whole major and minor 0.5 patch, less content released in that same time. And yes, there have been mitigating circumstances, but understanding that and being sympathetic to it doesn't make possibly the worst content drought in WoW history any more fun to sit through. And for many, a new expansion is the kind of minty fresh clean start they need to be able to get back into the game, and as a result, the fake expansion rumor mill has been going into overdrive for the last couple of months. This is how lean and ravenous this community has become. We've basically gone feral. Not playing feral, obviously, we're not idiots. Digging through the bins of MMO champion forums, desperate for whatever faint or half-eaten aromas of 10.0 nuggets we can find. I'm not going to share any of those fake leaks on this show, because that's what our stream highlights channel, Taliesin and Evitel TV, is for. But the TLDR is, we've all, just as a community, decided that it's Dragon Isle's next expansion. And there will be a selection and combination of player housing, a complete old world redesign, class skins, a Tinker class, a Dark Ranger class, cross-faction play, oh hey, and the Dragonflights as Covenants, but good this time though, and honestly, I hope to that whatever is being worked on, that it hits at least a couple of those points for Ian Hazakostas' sake. But it is understandable that people are getting genuinely excited about a possible announcement in the very near future. Shadowlands was revealed at BlizzCon before 8.3 went live, after all, and there's just that feeling that, you know, originally they were probably aiming for a BlizzCon 2021 reveal, and then a BlizzCon Line 2022 reveal in February. So even though BlizzCon 21 and BlizzCon Line fell through, maybe the expansion reveal didn't? I'm definitely of the opinion that we will be getting an announcement soon. And any scenario from the week of March the 8th, which is when people will start killing the jailer for the first time and seeing the end cinematic, to the week of 2/22/22/22/22 after the patch goes live, to, man, even any time between now and when 9.2 launches wouldn't surprise me for an announcement. And obviously this is all based on pure speculation. I have no insider knowledge, but I don't think they're going to be waiting until all the LFR wings are opened up in April, put it that way. It's always okay to be excited about new expansion reveals, even if it is a bit silly and maybe a little bit depressing that the way being cleared for a new expansion announcement is one of the main talking points that's come from 9.2's release date, especially since 9.2 is genuinely looking pretty good in my opinion, and is looking better all the time. It's genuinely had one of the best PTRs that I can remember in terms of developer communication and also player feedback being taken on board and changes to the game being made as a result. Like the way flying in Zereth Mortis was taken off the Cypher of the first ones and given a very simple Pathfinder unlock instead. Or new tier set pieces that originally dropped as individual gear items, but which, after community discussion, let's call it discussion, pain, immeasurable pain, horrible implementation, horrible decision, sadly as expected, the usual change for the sack of change, now take the form of trusty old multi-class tier tokens for old school raid distribution fun times. Not perfect because of the way personal loot works now, but a marked improvement which reflected the desires of the community. And there's more too, as maybe we'll see as we spin our 9.2 wheel of things that aren't even ready yet though, FML Blizz. The Cypher of the first ones. Yeah, Blizz, I'm sorry. This is still not even ready though, Blizz. This is generally in a really good state and is something that we have seen a lot of improvement to throughout the PTR cycle, removing flying from the console progress being the biggest and most obvious example. And also taking the obnoxious unlock timers away for ults, which is an objectively good change for sure, but in the same way that getting kicked in the balls is objectively better than getting shot in the balls. It's a better version of a terrible idea. And yes, on the PTR currently, the vast majority of the timers have been reduced from hours or days to just 5 seconds, which is a good change. It's like being kicked in the balls by a 10-year-old child rather than Cristiano Ronaldo. But let's be clear here, it is still deeply unpleasant because there are still at least 2 4-day and 2 5-day unlock timers across these trees, and frankly that can fuck right off. There is nothing that you can say to me that makes me think that that is anything other than total bullshit. Throw it in the sea, burn it with fire, shoot it into the sun, or just fix it to not be an obnoxious mobile game mechanic. No excuses, okay Blizz? I want the new no-timed version on my desk by the end of the day. Wow, I wonder what else is still not even ready though. Class tuning in 9.2 mostly takes the form of tier set and legendary tuning, and again, we have seen brilliant examples of dev communication through this process. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about it here because it is a bit more technical than we like to get on the reset, but yeah, let's just say that if you're a Frost Mage, or a Ret Paladin, or Holy Paladin, or a Feral Druid, you're probably not going to be super happy right now, and definitely will think there's still work to be done before 2.2 launches. And fair enough. Although, if you play Feral, I can only imagine that masochistic humiliation, degradation, and belittlement are something you enjoy at this stage. So I don't know, maybe you're pretty happy. Reputation has been the most contentious talking point of the PTR, and looking at the evolution of the Enlightened rep and the double equipable Shadowlands legendaries that it enables works as a great case study, I think. Kind of like a timeline of good PTR feedback from the community and subsequent changes by Blizz. So originally, both the static belt item and the legendary memory, which allows players to add their Covenant legendary ability to any viable gear slot and upgrade to the highest item levels, were both locked behind revered reputation with those Oscars Pistorius looking mofos, which wasn't unexpected because John Hyatt had said they would be behind rep in interviews since day one, but actually was a surprise to many because much like the Dragon Isles, the community had just sort of decided en masse that double legendaries wouldn't be a rep reward in the meantime, which meant its arrival on the PTR met with much concern. Bullshit! This can't be real, what the fuck? Alright, see you next X-Pack. The problem is, Blizzard said the reputation was not tied to player power. As expected, empty words when they said, we won't tie player power to reputation. Remember when this trash company said, in 9.2, no player power will be locked behind the new zone? Sigh. We won't tie player power to reputation, Blizzard. Lol, they believed us, Blizzard. The main problem being that, well, honestly, the main problem being that I genuinely think that at this exact moment in time, the community is just done with power rewards behind rep rewards, really. That's probably a conversation for another time. But the other big problem being that Zereth Mortis, despite being one of those WoW playground type patch zones, had a pretty hard cap on the amount of reputation that could possibly be earned in a day. Basically, just coming from the handful of available world quests. And when reputation is essentially capped per day, that means you have to play every day, or else you will fall behind with no way of catching up. A player who can play for 48 hours a week, but only on 2 separate days, would be miles behind a player who only put in 7 hours a week, but could log in every day. And every time that 48-hour player logs in, they know that they can't catch up. They know that the whole purpose of them logging in now is just to not fall behind any further. And that's not great motivation, you know? That doesn't feel very good. In fact, I think that feels a bit shit. So next, Blizzard removed the rep requirement for the legendary belt and had both becoming available to buy from the vendor upon completing chapter 7 of the Covenant campaign in week 5 of the patch. So now there was a way of getting double legendaries with no rep grinding at all, and those rep-averse players wouldn't be getting double legendaries any later than absolute ballers who had put in the grind to Revered and who had access to the objectively better memory. An improvement for sure, but it still didn't solve the problem with rep that we just described in terms of it being a daily commitment with no catch-up. So next, Blizzard then added reputation to rares, something we had been begging for on this channel, but also nerfed the rep gains from world quests, something we did not beg for on this channel, which meant that the rep problem still existed, except now players who wanted to be revered and ready for the memory unlock in week 5 had to do all the world quests and a substantial amount of rares and elites every day, or else they would fall behind with basically no catch-up. Meaning that now everyone loses, everyone feels like shit. That is definitely not something we asked for, Blizz. That was not very good feedback of you, Blizz. But don't worry, fam, this is a happy story, because finally, this week, the 4th iteration of this system seems to have actually gone and solved it. There is still rep on rares and elites, but the amount has been nerfed, with the reputation from world quests buffed again, as well as increases to the amount of rep awarded by the weekly world boss Antros and the bi-weekly Do Stuff Fill the Bar quest. And importantly, this means that, according to Blizz in their blue post at least, players will be able to comfortably hit Revered in time for week 5 without needing to kill a single rare. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but Taliesin, this is the same problem that we started with. We still need to log in every day or else fall behind. And that is correct. But importantly, there is now a way to catch up again if you do, in the form of those rares. And it's not a huge amount, but it is something. It means that players who can't log in every day but have a good few hours to kill when they do can bop out the 20-odd rares that Zereth Mortis contains and feel like having that extra time was worthwhile in keeping up to date and on course. And not just that, but of course it works as a buffer too. Someone who is logging in and doing the world quests every day will find that just by killing rares that they happen to be passing every now and then, and the occasional random rep token drop, they will actually be ahead of where they need to be and know that they don't have to log in every day from now on. Now, could that go even further? Yeah, absolutely. As far as I'm concerned, there should be rep on rares, but also treasures. I think there should be someone you can just turn in resources to for rep. I think you should get 1 rep for herbing or mining a node. I think you should get 1 rep for every mob you kill. I think you should be able to run dungeons in your Enlightened tabard for rep. So that's why this section is still on the wheel of, but it's not even ready though, because there's still time to do that, even though they definitely won't. But I think this whole process has been a great example of Blizzard putting one iteration of the feature out and responding to feedback and criticism multiple times until they got it right. And honestly, even now, this is pretty much the best iteration of a rep grind in modern WoW. And the thing that makes it work so well, and you're gonna hate me saying this, is the time gating of the 2 legendary items being unlocked by tying them to the weekly campaign quests. It means that player A can have twice as much rep as player B, but player B doesn't feel behind because all that matters is whether they are on course to hit the goal before a certain week. If rep is hard capped, you can fall behind without any chance of catching back up. If rep is uncapped, then one portion of the player base can get so unbelievably ahead of everyone else that you can't possibly tie any meaningful rewards to it. The new Zereth Mortis system kind of gives you the best of both. And you know, we'll see if it's like actually fun or not, but I'm genuinely pleased with how this has played out and the process we went through to get here. Let's give that wheel a happy spin. Oh, now this one is interesting. In the last couple of weeks, the final chapter of the 9.2 story campaign has disappeared. That last chapter, which was entitled Judgment, which, certainly seems to suggest it might have something to do with the fate of Sylvanas, a plot point which for many people is the true conclusion and climax of Shadowlands. But now, it's gone. There are now only 5 weeks worth of quests in the achievement. And what does that mean? Does it mean that Sylvanas will face no judgment because she was quite useful in the Sepulcher raid, and so we will basically forget about any of the problems we might ever have had with her in the past, and the final image of the expansion is the Ranger General, golden locks flowing, blue eyes glistening, holding up her bow and shouting, "The Shadowlands is free!" while Jaina and Tyrande shed a happy tear and cheer their new hero? Yeah, probably. No, probably not. But it is a bit of a mystery, and one that I'm actually glad of, maybe. Okay, here's the thing. It probably is that the quest will still happen in week 6 as planned, but that they've just taken it out of the PTR for now so that it doesn't get data mined or spoiled. And that's good, but I've always been worried that Judgment was going to be a bit of a non-quest anyway. Kind of like how the last chapter of the Korthia campaign was basically just a cutscene of Sylvanas and Anduin projected from his compass. It was good, but it wasn't exactly substantial. And my worry that an equivalent of that for Judgment is not going to be the ending to Shadowlands and the Sylvanas arc that anyone deserves. Everyone would be unhappy. All shows would be shitted. So, internet, I've got a little present for you today. How would you feel about sharing some nice, fresh, organic and sustainable, super tasty copium? Because I've got a feeling that what I've described is exactly what Judgment was going to be, because 9.2 was the last patch of the expansion and they simply didn't have time to do it properly. All hands on deck for 10.0 and all that. And I've just got this feeling that maybe Team 2 recently realized that 10.0 was actually a little bit behind where they wanted it, and that's why they have only recently decided to fill the gap with a 9.25, that upcoming patch featuring the cross-faction implementation that I think was clearly conceived as a full expansion feature, And what if the story team, faced with the prospect of a whole other 0.5 patch that they weren't expecting, thought to themselves, hey, you know what? This gives us a chance to really do Judgment. Not relegate it to a single short chapter of a campaign, but instead make it the main narrative focus over multiple quests of 9.25. And if we are really lucky, then it will have the time and space and effort to not even be a total shit show that is hated by literally everyone. Quick, take that chapter title off the 9.2 PTR. We've got some writing to do. Lovely, minty, sweet, sweet copium. Don't mind if I do. In conclusion, 9.2 may be in a pretty good state. It may be implementing lots of changes which are good in of themselves, but also heartening in that they continue to back up Team 2's 9.15 claims of having revised their philosophies on how they even make this game. But there are still areas that could and should be made even better, because this has the potential to be a great patch on its own terms. Obviously, in reality and in context of the expansion as a whole, it has to be functionally as good as 2 major patches, because that's how long we've waited for it. And so is kind of always going to be a disappointment through no fault of its own. But I am now officially hyped. Generally, with everything, it has been a really good couple of weeks to be a WoW player. Am I looking forward to it more than I'm looking forward to my new baby? Yes. Thank you for joining us today. Like I say, it is a weird time for us right now because we are basically just waiting for this kid to drop and getting as much work around that as possible. This is going to be the setup for the reset for the next month or so, but we have got a new green screen coming, so at least we'll be able to do some comedy intros again soon. We really appreciate everyone who's watching these vids right now, and the other channel, Taliesin and Evitel TV, and the Twitch streams too. It has been a surprisingly enjoyable month, all told. As always, we've got links to some Wowhead articles in the description, which go into tons more detail about everything that we've touched on in this episode and more. So check those out. And if you like this video, don't thank us. Thank our patrons who amazingly still give us their actual real life money to make all of our work happen. And if you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it. Remember, my name is Russ Peterson. No, my name is Taliesin from me and Evitel and an Iron too. Until next time, cheerio.